this is Stephen with Radiant Knife, and you're listening to the FANTASM Podcast.
Phantasm. Maximum terror.
That's your target audience, baby!
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.
Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal!
Phantasm.
Hey, this is Dr. Vincent West, medical doctor with the Phantasm Podcast. I'm very excited to have Stephen from Radiant Knife, and we're going to be talking about their new album, Pressure, which came out on July 14th. And Stephen's kind enough to join us all the way from Louisiana. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Hanging in here, just another day in Florida, just hanging out.
Yeah, you're not too far from Louisiana, huh?
No, I'm actually in Pensacola. I'm not too far at all, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So,
man, some of my old bands, we played some shows in Pensacola a long time ago, probably 15, 20 years ago.
oh, cool.
Yeah, I can't really remember much about it, but I remember we definitely played some shows there.
Well, it's funny. I grew up in the Miami area, and my aunt was stationed here years ago in the Navy. And I always kind of had a thing for this area. To be completely honest with you, I'm in this area because of work, but I'm also here because it's a hell of a lot cheaper than living, unfortunately, where I used to live, which I wish I could still afford to live in Boca Raton, but I just can't. So
I bet, man. I bet it's expensive over there.
it is brutal, yeah, but I like it out here. It's all right. I didn't really care for the cyclone a few years ago, but I'm used to the hurricane stuff. The cyclone thing freaked me out, but yeah. So, for our listeners, how did Radiant Knife come to be for you and your involvement with the band, whatnot?
Well, you know, we're just a two-piece, so it's just me and Greg Travassis, my drummer. So he's from Lafayette as well, Lafayette, Louisiana, and we've known each other probably since, 19, 20 years old.
Cool.
And in past bands, our bands played together. And we were kind of in the same kind of math rocky, Don Caballero influenced type projects, I guess. He moved away to Portland for a little while. I was in several other projects after that. And then I think around the 2016 time frame, I had a project coming to an end. And I'd hit up Greg just via email, and he had just moved back to Lafayette. So he said he had time to do the project, and Lafayette's not the biggest town, but I'm pretty sure in any town a good drummer is hard to come by. So when he said he was into it, I was like, all right, we're gonna do this, So we've been around a while, and that's kind of how it started. I think our first jams were in the 2016 time frame.
Awesome.
And we've been putting out albums ever since, man.
That's cool. That's around the time we started Phantasm, so that's fun.
A long time ago, but we're older. We kind of take it easy, kind of take it slow. We're not hitting the road all the time. So
sure.
We just take our time with the albums and just have fun with the music.
Absolutely.
No real. It's just a passion project at this point.
That's awesome. And then as far as we'll jump right into this record, Pressure. What can you tell us about the first track, Slumber?
What I'll say is, when we write, we kind of write in two different styles. Sometimes we lean more towards the technical aspects of writing riffs, like, pummeling, off time, off kilter, time changes, stuff like that. And sometimes we kind of relax a little bit and get into the more atmospheric aspects of things. But Slumber is definitely on that technical side, and it just kind of starts off, raging, and it's kind of in your face and out your face in 3 minutes, and that's kind of the side of us where we start to get kind of technical and get real heavy, and as technical as we get. It's still
Sure.
kind of sludge influenced. It's not a pompous technical guitar work or anything, but just try to make some cool riffs that are heavy and off time. Don't sit on them too long, and move on to the next one. So that's kind of how Slumber is, and there's a few songs in that style on our album, but it's cool to kick off with those songs because it kind of gets everybody's attention, you know.
Absolutely, it's a great way to kick the record off. And then what about track 2, Ghost Samurai?
Yeah, that one's kind of more, you know, the toned down as far as the riffage, as you know, focusing on the good riff, the good just chugging riff that everybody can bang their head to and kind of get into, and it kind of starts to lean onto the atmospheric type side with the vocals and the synth. I would say it's slightly, you know, could be slightly doom influenced. I really don't know how to describe our sound. I struggle with it, so I kind of just leave it up to people to tell us how we sound.
Oh, cool.
You know? And we just kind of flip-flop between what we're feeling at the time, and Ghost Samurai is kind of more of just a chugging, kind of almost doom riff, you know, that follows Slumber, which is the more technical. Actually, those songs are joined, and when we play them live, you know, once we end Slumber, we go right into Ghost Samurai for the most part.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, it's kind of like you know, it's the yin and yang shit. You know, it's here's one way of doing things, and here's how we do it on this song. You know, a little different flavor.
Awesome, very cool. And then the next song, Phil Collins Was Right. I'm a huge Phil Collins fan, by the way, so that's pretty cool.
I was watching some footage of him talking shit on Peter Gabriel the other day. So, but yeah, that song, you know, I guess you could say we're metal. I mean, we're pretty heavy, but we dabble with some melodic type stuff too. And that one, I think, has more of a melody to it. It's kind of simple riffs, but the synth kind of carries everything. So being a two-piece, I play synth with my foot. I have kind of like a Geddy Lee setup.
Awesome, man.
So I can pull all that stuff off live, but on the album, you know, I might take some advantage of making it a little more complex, but it's still pretty simple. But that song really is carried by the synth, and then we definitely employ more singing on that song than screaming. Yeah, that one's just kind of got the hooks, I guess you could say. You know.
What's your favorite? Now, are you more of a Phil Collins solo guy, or are you a Phil Collins Genesis guy?
You know, I can't say that I know much about him when he played drums in Genesis. I think he played drums in Genesis, right?
Oh yeah.
He was the original drummer, so I can't say I've listened to too much of that material. But then the later Genesis, I remember from the 80s, you know.
This shit's great.
Yeah, it was pretty good, you know. And I think anybody can remember that video with the weird puppet people. This is the world we live in.
Oh yeah, Land of Confusion. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go, man. I mean, that was a great video, but I mean, I dig all that stuff, man. Phil Collins is a talented guy, you know.
Oh, I think he's a great drummer.
Yeah, his solo stuff is great, you know. I mean, just, you know, it's nothing fancy, but it's great songwriting, you know.
I think he's one of the best drummers to ever live. Him, Keith Moon, and Neil Peart are my guys. And then,
yeah, you know, you're making me want to go just listen to some Phil Collins playing drums and see what it's about. I've heard he was a great drummer, but I can't identify him on any of that old Genesis material, you know.
I mean, that's him drumming on his solo, from his early solo stuff. That's all him.
Yeah.
There's a song on, if you go spin, oh gosh, I'll just walk in here real quick. I said recording, but I'm walking away from my mic. This is going to drive me nuts because I've got all his shit in here. Where is that album? I'll take it back in here with us. Okay, here we go. So my favorite Phil Collins album is No Jacket Required.
Okay.
And he drums on this whole thing. And there's a song on here called Inside Out, man. The drums on it are just... It sounds like he's going to knock you through a fucking wall. He's hitting them so hard. It's crazy, but... Yeah. I love him, man. He's great.
He kind of pioneered that gated snare technique too, and the gated toms where it's you know, when he comes with that do 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 do, you know, from
sir,
from that break. So not only, I guess, a good player, but also good in the studio as far as recording and all that.
And I'll tell you another thing that's really weird. A lot of people don't know this, but he drummed on Eric Clapton's August album.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, like, that in the way that you use it, the Color of Money thing, the Tom Cruise, the pool movie, that's him drumming on that.
Yeah.
He's beating the hell out of the drums. Like I said, him, Keith Moon, Neil Peart, and Thin Lizzy's drummer, which I'm drawing a blank on right now. Those are probably my guys.
You can't beat that, man.
I mean, anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked. But I saw the Phil Collins thing. I had to run with that for a minute.
No, I love talking about musicians, and especially the older group of guys, man. Because to me, that was the real shit back then.
Absolutely, amen.
It was before quantizing, all that dog shit, and
yes, sir.
Auto tune, all that stuff. So when you listen to some of those old albums, you're experiencing true musicianship for sure.
Absolutely, amen. So moving on, let's see. Give Yourself Away, track 4.
Yeah, that's that's kind of more of one of those doom influenced kind of maybe I was feeling Yob at that time.
Yeah.
The Our Raw Heart album. I really dug that album, and I'm not saying that song sounds like it, but I feel like it might be kind of tinged with some of that vibe.
Sure.
Definitely not in the same realm as Yob, but I feel like that one kind of has that, kind of the same vibe, I guess. And the lyrics, it's really just about giving yourself away. It doesn't matter anyway. You're just a single grain of sand on a barren land.
Right.
It's basically you're nothing in the universe. So I kind of like the vibe of that song.
Oh, it's great. Let's see here. Track 5, Sunsets from Space.
Yeah, that's an instrumental, and that's another style that we kind of write in. It's not very tech. It's not super over tech. It's not very melodic, but it's got some other kind of sci-fi element going on that kind of does convey a kind of a sci-fi outer space vibe, and it has a cool breakdown in the middle. I really like that song. I really like playing that song because we can pull it off pretty easily, and it just feels good to play and jam on. It's nothing too complex, but I really like the riffs. It's just something I identify with. Something about that style. I really like playing that type of music. So
that's great, man. It's a killer track. Let's see, track 6, Mortals.
Yeah, that's kind of start. I think that's pretty much the back half of the album. So that's when the side beat starts on the vinyl.
Right.
So you kind of close out with Sunsets from Space, and then Mortals kind of starts to kick off that tech, just kind of in your face, just kind of up tempo, fast, heavy riffs. And so Mortals is kind of the beginning of that, which kind of just rolls into the next couple of songs. I think that song kind of ends with like a slightly more down-tempo ending, but it's more of a chuggy type ending. But at first it starts off with some off time, like 5/7 or, some kind of weird time signature. So, I like that song, man. It's a good one too.
Very, very cool. Let's see, number 7, His Kappa was delayed.
His Kappa was detated.
Detated, sorry.
That's a quote from Michael Scott from The Office.
Oh, dude, that's fucking awesome.
I don't know why, but it's just something that just would stick in my head, and I was like, man, you know what? We're gonna call a song. He was talking about his boss that I believe got decapitated when a truck.
Yeah.
And he says his Kappa was detated.
That's great, man.
But yeah, that one's it's a little off time, but it's kind of got more of a rock element to it. It's got a pretty cool breakdown that I think a lot of people could get into, even if you're not into weird avant-garde metal or anything, So that one was a good single. That was our first single because it's kind of concise, has a lot of stuff going on in it, and it's not blazing fast or by any means, but it's kind of up tempo, and it kind of was a good single to get the album pressure kicked off.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, and you gotta love The Office. That's fun. What's funny? The episode you're talking about is one that I watch certain episodes of that over and over again. That's one that I think because his boss died, it just kind of fucked with my PTSD, and I was just like, but I guess I need to watch that now so I can hear the joke, because I think I kind of watched it one time and then never probably went back to it because I was just like, oh man, that's weird.
Yeah, I'm actually completely burnt out on The Office, but because I've watched it so much in the past. But I know probably in 5 years I'll come back to it.
Oh yeah,
it'll probably still be on TV. So.
Oh yeah, it's definitely out there. Let's see, track 8, Cleanser.
Yeah, man, that was kind of a different song. I don't know. You ever listen to a band called Breadwinner? They were kind of like an older technical instrumental band.
I'm not familiar with them.
I think they came out with an album that was called The Burner.
Nope.
And it was some real awesome shit. I think the drummer may have gone on to play in Confessor. I could be wrong.
Oh, okay.
But the drummer's like one of the best drummers ever. But they had some cool breakdowns and some cool riffage. And for some reason, that song kind of reminds me a little bit of some of that old Breadwinner stuff in the middle. Kind of just has like some odd, kind of off-kilter breakdowns with some nothing too crazy, but the timing of it is interesting to me. It kind of starts off rock and roll, but then it kind of goes into that weird off-time noise rock shit or something in the middle.
Oh, okay.
And then wraps up with just kind of like I don't know, kind of like some airy singing and a final closeout riff.
Yeah.
That one, we don't really play that one too much live. I would like to get into it. I think we'd have to work on being able to pull it off because it's kind of hard to pull it off to sing that stuff and play at the same time. But that one's a good one, man. It just doesn't get enough rotation in the live sets, Let
me ask you this, just real quick about your live set. Is it just the two of you?
Yeah, it is, man.
God damn, that's crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, if you go check out YouTube, I mean, there's some footage of us playing. You can check out how we pull it off. But
that's awesome.
So I have a guitar rig, just a basic guitar rig with a head and a cab, and then I have a bass rig with a bass head and a bass cab, and I split the signal from my guitar through like a Octaver, like a Electro Harmonics Micropog, I believe it is.
Okay.
That goes to the bass amp, and it kind of gives you like a fake bass sound, like it doesn't really sound quite like a bass, but it definitely pushes that low end way more than a guitar, and it fills up your sound pretty good.
That's neat.
And then yeah, as I mentioned earlier, then I play keyboards with my foot. So, man, to be honest, we have a pretty full sound live, for a 2-piece, in my opinion, Now on the record, I do double guitars and stuff like that, and I may take some liberties with the bass track, as far as like.
Oh yeah, of course, that's cool.
Not having it mimic the guitar 100%, but like write kind of a bass part for the guitar riff,
Right.
But we still pull it off live, man. There's some good live footage out there, so if you go check it out, you can see how it's done. It is a lot of shit to lug around and set up for a live show for just one guy,
Right.
But I've got it down to where I can get everything plugged up pretty much in less than 20 minutes. So through a lot of trial and error, I think I've got it worked out to where there's no downtime during a show,
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you all do now? Is it a pretty big set, or is it? Do you like that? I mean, have you ever thought about bringing in like other members to do the live set, or do you all just say fuck it, we're just going to do the 2-piece?
And it's it's really comes down to like personalities, you know, and you know, when you add another member, it could be a dynamic change for the better, but it could also be a dynamic change for the worse. I mean, sonically, it probably would help it with the right person in place. But man, those people are just hard to come by.
Yeah,
you know, it's hard to come by somebody who like will show up on time, has their own shit, is respectful, can add value, like play some badass riffs, you know. And,
right.
I have thought about adding a bass player here and there, but you know, with just a two-piece, it's so easy. Just making decisions as far as riffs are concerned.
Right.
Making decisions as far as like what we're gonna do and you know how we're gonna do things. It just makes it simple, man. So I think the simplicity kind of trumps any kind of value we add by adding another member, you know.
I mean, I hope you didn't. I wasn't like suggesting that. Like, are you familiar with the band? I don't even know if they still exist. A band called Zombie with an I.
Yes, the synth player and the drummer.
Man, I always thought that. I don't know if they still exist or not. I haven't listened to them in years, but that's kind of what I thought about when I was reading your all's bio. I was like, man, that's really fucking cool. Not that y'all sound like that. I'm just saying that I thought it was neat, you know.
I love Zombie. They're one of my favorite bands. I probably have almost all their albums. And I think Pinkish Black is a duo as well, and I really love them. They kind of got that dark wave type vibe, but they kind of have a little bit of progressive edge. And yeah, I think Zombie, the guy trades off between bass and synth here and there, you know, like a real bass. And
do they still exist?
As far as I'm aware, they came out with an album, I think maybe about a year ago.
Oh, that's cool. When I listened to them, this was, 15 years ago, I thought they were cool because I'm a big John Carpenter fan. They sound like John Carpenter's scores, you know?
They definitely have that influence. That album Cosmos, and then the album I really liked back in the day was Surface to Air.
Oh, yeah, that record's great.
Yeah, it kind of has a little Rush influence. You can
yeah.
Hear, you know?
Yep.
Those albums turned me onto them for sure, and the newer albums, I continue to buy and I dig them. But yeah, if you haven't heard Pinkish Black as well, check them out. They're kind of almost kind of the same deal, but a little more gritty and definitely darker.
Oh,
just
okay.
kind of like this dark, somber vibe. Just the way the guys. I mean, Zombie doesn't really sing. But the guy who sings for Pinkish Black, he's a good vocalist, man. It adds a cool vibe to everything.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them either. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, they're cool.
Awesome. And then let's see the final track here, Demon Legs.
Yeah, that's, back in the day when I was heavily influenced by, some of these technical bands like Breadwinner I had mentioned, and then Don Caballero, a band called Keel Hall, which I used to love.
I'm not familiar with any of these bands. I feel stupid.
Oh, okay. What?
But I'm more of a... I was... My favorite band growing up was Rush. And
well, yeah.
I never missed a tour. My uncle was obsessed with them. We saw every tour from 80... to 97 together. Then he died shortly thereafter that, and then I finished watching them. But it's weird. A lot of music. I'm a big Thin Lizzy fan, but there's a lot of bands that I don't know. It's hard for me to really listen to a lot of newer, and your records was killer. But I'm just saying a lot of there's a lot of stuff these bands that I end up interviewing, and they're
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. I still listen to the same bands that I discovered when I was 19, 20.
Right.
And those bands were influenced. I didn't realize it at the time, but they were heavily influenced by Rush, Yes, King Crimson, all those guys. And,
sure.
And then when I got older, I started circling back to those older bands like Yes and King Crimson. I was like, and Mahavishnu Orchestra is another one that I really like.
I'm not familiar with them either. Never heard of them.
They're pretty. There's old band, 70s, great, almost a little fusion influenced in a weird way, but they have their album Birds of Fire is amazing.
I'll have to check that out.
Anyway, So a lot of those bands kind of have a long form, like the songs would be like 8 minutes long, 9 minutes long.
Sure.
And that's how I used to write as well. So Demon Legs is kind of back to that, how I used to write. Letting the song continue on instead of saying you got to box it in this 3 or 4 minute format. Just let it play. And that one has that cool outro that kind of, I mean, the song starts off full blitz, just, heavy tech shit. But by the end of it, it's just this airy, I don't know, I call it kind of like a comet tale of just synth acoustic guitars and like kind of just fading out,
Right, right.
So it's kind of influenced by those bands. And yeah, man, definitely check out Keelhaul, man. If you're a Rush fan, you will definitely like Keelhaul because the drumming on that is some of the baddest drumming ever, man.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I think look for a Keelhaul. I think the album is called Subject to Change. That's a great one. And it's pretty much instrumental. There's a little bit of vocals, but I mean, just pummeling,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I will definitely check that out. I don't know. It's weird. Like a lot of the stuff, like I think the thing I probably get stoned for the most is I'm a Tony Martin era fan of Black Sabbath because that's what I saw.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, like I came right in at the end of Ronnie, and then right into Tony. I love the Tony Martin era stuff, and people fucking hate it, and that's just what I like.
Man, I can't say that I've ever listened to it, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you one to spin, and it's been out of print for years. Is Headless Cross. That's my favorite Black Sabbath album.
I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna have to go check it out.
It's got Cozy Pal on drums, and it's just great. It's a killer. Cozy Pal's is destroying the drums on that, but it's just a great album, and I really like it. And it's nothing against the Ozzy stuff, but that's not what I grew up on. I grew up on, like, I could go see Tony Martin. Like, by the time I went and saw Ozzy with Sabbath, it was like the late 90s when they reunited, and I wasn't that impressed with it. I love Ozzy solo stuff, but I just was not.
I mean, any hardcore fan is gonna hate on the next lineup, if it doesn't contain, certain original members. So
right.
You always see that shit, but even if the album is better than it was the previous lineup, so.
Well, I mean, it's like Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen, and I'm not a guitar player, was my favorite guitar player, and I went and saw every incarnation of that band I could because I wanted to see him perform, and I will tell people that, like, you went and saw him with Gary Sharon? Yeah. You went and saw him with Sammy Hagar? Yeah. I mean, I prefer the Roth stuff. That's the first stuff I saw. That's the first stuff I heard, but I got to see him perform. Every time he was performing, I was watching, and
yeah, my dad took me to see Van Halen when it was, I forget, it was not the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. It was maybe before that one.
Oh, you ate one too?
Maybe that was it. And it wasn't like a big venue from what I remember. I was probably like 14 or 15. But
he's a fucking great guitar player, man.
Oh, yeah. Alice in Chains opened up for him.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was before anybody knew who they were.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then like the next 6 months they exploded, so
well, that's cool.
It was pretty cool, man.
That is cool.
I've never been a Hagar fan either, but I can listen to it, man. But yeah, I like the David Lee Roth stuff better for sure.
Now for Sammy, I love his solo stuff and I love Montrose, but I can't deal with the Van Halen stuff. The only record that I like, and again, you go give it a spin sometime, the only one that I can deal with is 5150. I think that record's great. But
yeah,
the B-side tracks, the smaller tracks, not the hits, but the non-radio songs on that record, I think are great, man. Like the song, the title track 5150, I think the riff in that's killer. I think it's great. It's got a lot of energy, and they kind of lost that after that record for me. Like it was still kind of energetic Van Halen stuff, but his fucking guitar playing, man, is just I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I just other than and I mentioned this earlier, Scott from Thin Lizzy, oh my God, him and Robo, I just think are the greatest things on the fucking planet.
Eddie Van Halen's style is really super unique, you know, and not just his style, but his tone. Like his tone is really different than a lot of guitar tones you hear out there, and it just works, man. And although I could always appreciate the technicality, it wasn't until I got older that I was like, man, you know, he was on some other tip with his tone, you know.
Absolutely.
It's like he had his own sound going, even if, you know, aside from the technical solos, he had his own, you know, just his own sound, you know. So
it's funny you said that. I think the only two guitar players that you know, just for me personally, that I always recognize their tone, with two honorable mentions, but to me, Eddie and then David Gilmour, you always know it's David Gilmour. It's like, David Gilmour's got that Fat Strat tone, or you know, and his style, you can tell his style with those bends, the way he bends. Oh my God, it's just, you know, and then you know, honorable mentions, I would say Alex Lifeson and Pete Townsend. I'm a big Who fan. All my friends growing up were Led Zeppelin people. I'm a Who guy. I will take the Who all day long over Led Zeppelin.
Pete Townsend's just an amazing songwriter, you know. He's definitely a good guitar player, but just the songwriting, I always loved his solo stuff. And,
oh my God, he's fucking...
I'm not the type of guy who can name albums and songs, but I know when that shit comes on, I know it's Pete Townsend. You know what I'm saying?
It's like Keith Moon. Give me Keith Moon over Bonham. I prefer Keith Moon. Keith Moon was something, like people telling me, oh, well, he would dynamite his hotel room. Cool, I want to hang out with him and drink beer with him. That sounds awesome. You know? Led Zeppelin, I love Robert Plant's solo stuff, but I feel weird saying this, but I never liked Jimmy Page. I was never a Led Zeppelin guy. I like the Robert Plant solo stuff, but I heard it so much growing up, and it was second tier. You know, I'm not that old, but it was second tier when I was growing up, and I was just like, oh my God, I never liked, but the Who I loved, because I never heard the Who on the radio. I never had it crammed down my throat. And then, weird, crazy story to tell you, literally a year before my uncle died, we went to Vegas when Entwistle died. We had tickets to see them when Entwistle died in his hotel room.
Damn.
Which is just fucking weird, because that was my uncle's favorite band. It was just weird we didn't get to see them together. I just thought that was bizarre. But, I always thought that band was the shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always liked them, but...
That's some great songwriting, and, you know, with Led Zeppelin, I did like Jimmy Page. I did like Led Zeppelin, but the more you get older, you more realize how much that stuff's just straight ripped off from those old blues musicians in the South, and you know, and then it starts to kind of discredit them. Well, like, you know, well, shit, that's the same riff that Robert Johnson was playing.
Yep.
You know, but the Who didn't have that. You know, I mean, it was rock and roll, but they had their own thing going, their own kind of mod style. You know. So. Oh
yeah, and it's you were talking about Gilmour, like Pink Floyd for me. My favorite is Animals. That's my favorite Pink Floyd album.
That's a great album.
It is, and I feel like people just don't know what it is. You talk to people. I talk to so many people, they have no idea what that record is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I listened to that 6 months straight just on my running headphones. Like when
it's great.
I put on the music, and like, man. That's that, and then I mentioned Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire. That's another album that I would run to. But I really didn't get into Floyd till later in life, man. You know, because you know, in college and stuff, all the knuckleheads that like Pink Floyd, they just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Sure,
and it's almost like I'm not those guys. They like worship Pink Floyd. I wasn't one of those guys, you know.
Right.
And only later in life I started to really truly dig into it and respect it, and for them to pull that stuff off back then, and it's so unique, you know, and nobody was doing stuff like that. Even to this day, nobody sounds like them at all, you know.
To me, and I don't ever hear them get mentioned enough in the prog community. To me, they're better than most of that top stuff.
Yeah. The recording and the song construction and
Oh my God,
all the ins and outs and the atmospheric vibes that they just build are just amazing. And then, of course, they're all great musicians too. I mean, the guitar work is amazing, and to be able to play all that stuff, and it really is slow.
It is.
And I don't know. I mean, my experience is that slow doesn't necessarily mean easy. A lot of times, slow is harder to play than the fast shit.
I had a guy. It's funny you said that. I had a guy recently telling me, he was like, "Why the hell do you like Phil Rudd?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, you try playing like that," because I'm a drummer. And Phil Rudd, I think, is one of the most amazing anomalies on this planet. And people are like, "Why do you like him? Why is that exciting?" I'm like, he's really good at what he does.
Yeah.
It's like you can make fun of you don't have to like AC/DC, but Phil Rudd keeps it in the pocket. And I mean, I think he's unbelievable myself. But just to do, because again, like you just said, slow isn't always easy.
Yeah, all those bands and like Yob and in those same veins with those long spaces in between. I mean, I don't think it gets enough respect, man, because that shit is hard to play on drums. Yeah,
it is.
The drummer's he's not doing anything amazing, but you have to have a pretty solid internal clock to be able to pull that shit off.
Fucking A. Stephen, I can't thank you enough for this. I'm sorry for sidetracking and talk about everything else. Kids pick up Radiant Knife's Pressure. It's awesome. It's available now. And, dude, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed the music conversations, man. Now I got some stuff to go listen to.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I know it's weird, but Phil Collins, man, No Jacket Required. The drums on that are just fucking crazy.
I'm going to go check it out.
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.